Questions for any of the team here? Anyone? Walters, your hand up. Oh.
Yeah, I have not seen this before, and it wasn't anything in our packet on it, so this is all fresh to me. You're proposing that the one you've got there, the Tesoro one, for lack of a better name, you're leaving the existing box culvert and working within it.
Yes.
Okay. How, if you take out, what is that, 8 feet of bike path? If you take 8 feet of width out of that water channel, where does the water go without rising?
Right.
I can add a little bit to that.
Okay.
If you look under there right now, there's a significant amount of soil. The creek does not go concrete to concrete right now.
Okay.
So
I've never been under it either.
Yeah, well, I have. So the part that troll, it's actually the other side of the. Yeah, I'm not a troll. The other side of the, it's the other side, but so there'd have to be some work to work in there to make it work, but it would actually.
It could be cleaned out.
It could be cleaned out.
Yeah.
The path could be adjusted to allow for flow of that kind of traffic underneath. And in those high flow periods, the water would take over the path and would continue to flow water. So it wouldn't be any more of an obstruction than what we have right now.
That's right. So that's what the students did by going in and surveying the entire area, found that it could be dredged, rechanneled, and then looking at the flow rates throughout the year, determined that there would be enough flow capacity.
And I don't intend to work the details tonight, just some things in my mind. Question for Les. Is that a concrete bottom in that box culvert?
I think it's bottomless.
My understanding is it is not. It's just a natural
Okay.
creek channel.
So it's a bridge and not a box culvert?
It's a bridge.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then-
so the students, it was a really neat thing. Often our senior design courses work with ITD on projects, and so ITD, when they heard about this project, they offered someone from Lewiston to come up and work with them, and they brought all the drawings and designs. It's a riprap bottom, and the foundation was deep enough that you could still dredge and not even reach the bottom of the foundation.
Reach the footings?
The footing.
And then last question has to do with handicapped accessibility. Did they look at enough length to get the ramps up out of that thing?
They did. This grade here would meet ADA.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But all of those answers, of course, with the caveat, these were students. So there would be.
You said that. I didn't say that.
Okay, Sue, did you have a question?
Well, you just let me in. You let me in for that, Tom, when you said you spent a lot of time under the bridge. I thought you liked that better than Billy Goat's Gruff.
Yeah, that's fine.
But the Pullman pathway, as I recall, like it has a sign that says, like get off your bike and walk through. This is narrow because it's not 8 feet wide. It's much.
Yeah, I believe that this.
It's narrower, but I think this is a wonderful idea and a great priority. And it's doable. I mean, we don't have to take out the bridge. We don't have to. And it does lend connectivity to.
The Pullman
I was quite
one,
impressed.
I think Pullman has some sightline issues because of
Yeah.
a little bit of a bend, a deviation in the path, but this one doesn't appear to have.
It doesn't. But then again, I'm not even sure if that would be necessarily a showstopper. I think there could be signage if the grade is at such that it's advised to dismount or something. I think the benefits would still make this a worthwhile
Either
project.
pushing your bike under the street or across it. And under it's the safer option, I think. And that was the big thing, sitting with the Paradise Path Task Force throughout all this is, looking at what makes these things safer, especially for, families with their kids, the
Strollers.
recreational type riding. And this was one of the, almost a no-brainer once everybody started thinking about, how could we get across Highway 8? Do you want to dig a tunnel up at the Mountain View intersection? Well, there's already a tunnel here. So, and rather than waiting for the light at Blaine or putting another light in up at Mountain View, this seemed like the more feasible option as far as allowing flow for both directions, basically.
Anybody else? The Paradise Path Task Force have any additions to this discussion?
You guys have your small scale priorities
Right.
as well. Did you want to go over those a little bit, or I don't know if Mike's got them with him there.
Yeah, the top 5 also happen to be the most expensive. And there were other projects that were noted that that might be done for less money. One difference also, though, are those projects, a lot of them have to do with connections to the pathway in terms of on-street bike lanes, new bike lanes, or new on-street markings. And so in some ways that needs to visit the Transportation Commission, because that's maybe something they're already working with, I believe, with on-street bike lanes. Whereas the Paradise Path Task Force was really focusing a lot on the off-street paths and making connections there.
Walter?
What is a sharrow?
A sharrow.
If I was asked to go out and paint one, what would I paint?
Oh, well, I can show you.
I'm showing my ignorance here.
Yeah, this is on right there is a sharrow, and it's a shared use lane. It's shared because it's share the lane with a
It's a
vehicle
sharrow.
and
Oh, I thought it was some kind of striping thing.
yeah. So these are as Dan mentioned, there were a few low cost connections and ideas, and some of them included, for example, a buffered bike lane on Almond Street, a buffered bike lane on Rodeo, a shared use lane in a few locations in town. Sharrow on 3rd Street, Sharrow's on campus, buffered bike lane on Rodeo, and a buffered bike lane on Almond. And then wayfinding signs at key locations. Those were the top 5 low-cost priorities.
Okay. Margaret, something you want to add to that?
No, just that we would like your support. We understand there's a multimodal transportation plan that is underway and will take 2 years to produce.
You want to
And
use
we-
that microphone so
and-
people can hear you.
And we hope that these priorities that we've come up with will be included in that multimodal transportation plan.
Well, a lot
Walter?
of work has gone into that. Yes, Walter?
When Margaret's concluded, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I'm
Okay.
finished.
Madam Mayor, like I say, I just saw this in the packet with no detail whatsoever. I'm not sure what exactly is being asked of us, but I am not personally willing, with this little bit of 15 minutes of information, to vote approval of the list and instructions to proceed with building the things. We don't have any budgets for any of them or whatever. I think Margaret's comment about working to include them in the consideration of the multimodal study, to continue to study the details. You've got a fair amount of detail on the White Avenue Highway 8 project, but not much information on the other underpasses, in terms of will they physically work, and we don't have any cost estimates whatsoever. Based upon that, Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion that we accept the report and support the Paradise Path Task Force efforts in this regard, and encourage that they continue, and that the other commissions, departments of the city that have relating interest and overlapping responsibilities be encouraged to work with this initial package.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have Walter's motion and Dan's second. Tom?
Yeah, let me just understand the motion, because I think all we're being asked to do is accept the Paradise Path Task Force project priorities, and I think that's what I heard you just say. We aren't being asked to start building anything.
Right.
And so I think we're just being asked to accept these priorities. We did already hear that the Paradise Path Task Force has done the initial, circulation of these ideas to the various other commissions and staff and so forth. So I think that's starting to happen. I think your suggestion is already starting to happen as well. So I think that's what I'm hearing. What your motion is what this says. Except
the intent of the motion, Tom, is not to buy this list as presented as the council's position on these are the projects. It's to accept the report, to and encourage them to continue to work on it. It's what it really amounts to.
And would you like to clarify the nature of the work that you're proposing they continue to do at this point, at this stage?
That they work with students, they work with engineering, they work with Transportation Commission, with the Mobility Task Force, and with the, through the Engineering Department, work with the street study. Just getting started.
And
for example, just to hit the hot button, this has got number 5 under the priority list as being build the 3rd Street pedestrian bike bridge. This council has previously put that effectively on hold to be studied by the street study. So I don't want to jump the gun and buy that as this is a priority of the council, even if it's number 5, when we previously said we want more information about that and whether or not to have a vehicle bridge there. So that's part of where my caution's coming from there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that that Dwight said in his opening remarks that given some go-ahead, this group would be looking at fundraising opportunities, and you singled out the bicycle pedestrian bridge at 3rd and Mountain View, and in fact there is already funding in the budget for that project, accumulating donations, and potentially for some of these other projects, including
yes, ma'am, that is correct. I
underpass.
think there's $14,000 in that account that's been there for 5 years. There was an effort, not an effort, but I'll call it a pitch, for lack of a better word, to increase donations to that, and to my knowledge, no additional donations have come in. I suspect each of these tube tunnels and underpass, et cetera, could approach $1 million apiece. I don't think these things are cheap, and I'm not sure that this group, no matter how dedicated and how much effort they're willing to put into it, are going to raise that kind of money. This money is going to have to come from this council to build these with either grants or tax levies or bonds, or find it some way in the budget, in my opinion. I mean, that's not to say they can't happen.
Right.
But these are major undertakings, just like Mike said.
Right, but the sharrows, the additional bike lanes, the other lower cost priorities that were also singled out are things that the council has not given clear direction on proceeding. I think Dwight was stepping up to give some clarification of intent, but we have this motion and the second on the floor. And so we'll have the council's continued discussion, and then I'll invite the clarification from staff so that, we can maybe salvage some of the extensive amount of work that's gone into this effort by a lot of different groups working together.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I don't feel that I've done anything to require anybody salvaging anything. I've done nothing to torpedo anything. I don't think. I didn't intend to. In terms of painting buffered bike lanes on streets and sharrows that I just learned about, and wayfaring signs, I think we have a process that the task force can work with the engineering department, public works department, to see if those are feasible and work through those, because they are low cost. There's no big commitment either needed by this council to pay for them or to set up any more formal process than what I think already exists. And I think my motion encourages them to pursue all of these.
Is there other discussion? Just is this clarification of what the council's prepared to vote on?
If I could.
Please,
just
absolutely.
briefly.
Go ahead.
Just to touch on a couple things real quick, that I've been very pleased with what I've seen come out of the group here. Some good recommendations, some good ideas. But I also want to make the council aware of some of the other things that are going on as part of your discussion that you're in right now. Obviously, the Transportation Commission has a role in looking at some of those blue lines that Mike referred to a little earlier on the map, and consideration of pathways and such within the system that fit with some of these recommendations. The multimodal transportation plan was mentioned. It will take this information as well as what the Transportation Commission and others have put together and incorporate it into an overall look at the entire system. But a couple other things that you may not be aware of. At the suggestion of ITD, Transportation Commission has worked on an identification of grade separation locations for potential projects where pathways and highways could be grade separated. Spots like we just looked at here at Steiner are on that list, and ITD suggested we do that so that they are then on the radar screen for ITD when they do projects in the future on the highways to be able to consider those types of grade separations. So the one that's on this list is their number one, fits within that very well. All that being said, with the thought of accepting this information this evening, and I think some of the concerns that Councilmember Steed's talking about, there are things that we can continue to work on while the multimodal transportation plan and such is progressing. The idea has surfaced, and we've talked about it at a staff level, of a pilot project that might go out and identify one or two of these corridors where we could do the on-street painting and maybe some signage. Perhaps the Cleveland corridor that parallels Mountain View would be a good example. And then I think there's some potential grant funding that Dwight and others are working on that possibly could fund maybe the first priority project that is on the list, and that's something that would come back to this council for approval before it went anywhere. But it's, there are things like that that project would probably be on any master planning document that we come up with because it's just a good project. So it's something that we could perhaps pursue grant funding for in advance of the rest of those things coming to fruition. So just a little additional information to help you, I hope, in your consideration.
You bet. And that was my concern. If a funding opportunity arises and there needs to be clearer buy-in from this council, I hope that staff will bring it forward urgently so that the council may articulate that in a clearer fashion than as proposed by this